Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for DC Spotlight for the week of March 29th, 2022. Kind of a smaller week, which is just fine with us. Don't forget, you can check out the War for Earth 3 finale thoughts on our War for Earth 3 Spotlight on a separate episode. But for this one, we're going to dive into the remaining issues. I guess there's 7 of them, including the kickoff of the Shadow War. So, don't know how well DC's events have really been going. We've talked about War for Earth 3 being a little on the disappointing side. Trial of the Amazons, we're still kind of waiting for the action to start, which the event's half over already. So that's a little problematic. So yeah, we'll talk about whether Shadow War is the event that's hopefully gonna kick it off, because we've got a lot of other events coming. We got Dark Crisis and we got Flashpoint Beyond and all kinds of other stuff. So our hope remains eternal for DC to be putting out some good books. So, but yeah, overall an okay week. Not great, but there's nothing that really was groundbreaking, but a couple pretty solid issues. All in all, we have the return of Ron V's Swamp Thing as well. So, how do you feel about the week for
Uh,
DC Comics overall, Rock?
well, thank God for Elseworlds, but they don't call it Elseworlds. They call it Black Label, or they call it Alternate Universe. But one Batman, One Dark Knight by Jock, the second chapter I enjoyed. DC versus Vampires by Tinian Rosenberg is a different continuity. I enjoyed that. Batman Beyond the White Knight, I was intrigued by the opening issue by Sean Gordon Murphy, and so I enjoyed that. And within continuity, I'm very happy that Ram V is back on Swamp Thing for his final 6 issues with that. So yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. To
All
reviewing
right, well,
everything.
let's kick it off. Let's kick it off with Aquaman #2. Script is by Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas. Pencils by Sami Basri. Inks are by Vicente Fuentes. Colors by Adriana Lucas. Letters by Andworld Design. Oh boy. Um, Here's the thing about this Aquaman series. I like the sort of concept of it, right? Like, we've got Jackson Hyde. He's being called Aquaman. You still have Arthur Curry. He's being called Aquaman. We saw in Chuck Brown's recent Black Manta series that it almost seems like DC is trying to create an anti-hero out of Black Manta, which we can argue the merits of that, and we talked about it extensively when we covered those issues. But he's definitely, at least for this story, going to be on at least working alongside Aquaman, Arthur Curry, if not, an outright hero in terms of, or on the side of Angels in terms of what his motivations are. Um, but it does feel to some extent like we've taken a step backwards. And what I mean by that is we had a lot of growth from Jackson Hyde in the Aquaman Becoming series. And in this issue, we saw at the end of last issue, that the first debut issue, that Arthur Curry was already working alongside Black Manta, and then Jackson shows up at this aircraft hangar in Paris, France, and is surprised to see Arthur Curry working alongside Black Manta, and that's where this issue picks up. And Jackson, despite us seeing him sort of mature in that Aquaman Becoming series, he goes back to being this immature, petulant, unthinking character. And I get that at the end of that Aquaman Becoming series, that there were some really emotional moments, and Jackson's mother currently is in some sort of coma, and she's hurt, and there's still issues going on between Atlantis and Zabel, which there always are, but he feels sort of responsible for that, with the fact that it's sort of his family, his grandmother, his sister, who have caused a lot of the more recent unrest and the political frictions between the two places. And he's got a foot in each of those worlds, both Zabel and Atlantis. And so he feels sort of, torn between the two. So I get that he's got a lot of stuff going on, right? And that could lead to some angst and um, some emotional outbursts or whatever. But I just feel like, and maybe this stems from that fantastic Future State Aquaman series that we got from Brandon Thomas, with art by Daniel Sampere. I just expect more from Jackson Hyde, because we've gotten more from Jackson Hyde. And here, he's not even likable. He comes across as a closed-minded, and I don't want to I don't want to say stupid, but really unintelligent. I'll put it that way. Like, listen to Aquaman. Has Arthur Curry, who has done nothing but welcome you with open arms to be a part of his family, has he not earned any benefit of the doubt or any sort of trust for you? Like, you see Black Manta there and you can't even think, like you just lash out. To me, that's not mature, that's not intelligent, it's not being a very good hero. And so that happens right at the beginning of this issue. So it just sort of colored my outlook on the rest of the issue. The other part is this mystery of why Aquaman is working with, or why Arthur Curry is working with Black Manta. I like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just over the whole mystery thing because DC's been giving us so much of it recently. Not least of which, obviously, is the whole Red X thing. But everything doesn't have to be a mystery. You can just tell us up front what's going on with these, Atlanteans that are blowing up houses and uh, infecting people in Paris, France, and causing Arthur Curry and Black Manta to work together. Just tell us. We don't need yet another mystery that's drawn out. It's not compelling. It's just kind of annoying at this point. Maybe if you don't read everything DC, it doesn't bug you. But the fact of the matter is we do read everything from DC, and
Right.
it's almost like every series there has to be some big mystery that's going on, and it gets old, you know. So it's okay to tell a story that doesn't have some big last issue reveal. So I still have hopes for this. It just I question how well these writers are working together. But again, it's only the second issue, and there are some interesting themes. I love that we're getting the whole Aquaman family. It's not just Arthur Curry and Jackson Hyde. We've got Garth here. We've got Mira. We've got what's
Dolphin.
Aqualas's?
Is it
Um,
is that Dolphin? Is
it's
that her
not
name?
Dolphin. It's Aqualas. I want to say
Aqualad?
her name is Tila, right?
Tila,
Tula,
right.
Tula, Tula,
Tula.
Tula. That's what it.
Tula, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Tula.
I was
Not
like,
Dolphin.
Tila's from He-Man. I know that's not right. Yeah, Tula. Um, yeah, so she's here. We even see Dr. Shin at one point. So I love that we're getting the bigger supporting cast.
Right.
Wouldn't have minded seeing an appearance by a little Andy Curry, which we
Mm.
only get in sort of a flashback in Arthur Curry's head, and we get Orm as well. So I love that it's kind of a family affair, but I need a little more character growth from Jackson Hyde. I feel like we've lost some progress in Jackson Hyde's
Right.
evolution and maturity as a character. So,
Yes.
um, and I thought the art was a little. It wasn't quite as sharp as we've seen Sami Basri's art in the past. I don't know if he was rushed or if he's still kind of finding his footing. I mean, drawing underwater scenes is not always the easiest. So the art was good, but not great. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to start off by saying what my most shocking moment in this comic was. It totally threw me for a loop. In a funny, comical way, but in a I don't know. I'm just gonna say it. At one point, Mira is putting together, all these Atlantis sleeper agents have been propping up and they've been blowing up around the globe, and they're just Mira with Tula and Garth and Dr. Stephen Shin. They do the autopsy, and they've discovered that Mira says, and I'm reading this. Mira says, or one of the language, some of the writing on the walls in some of these places where these where these incidences took place. It reads. She says it reads Atlantis remembers. Then and there's a date corresponding to an oil spill that ended the lives of 7 Atlanteans choked to death on surface poisons. This was no accident. And this is what got me. She says, out of the blue, and I need to call Frankenstein on Mars. And I'm thinking, where did Frankenstein on Mars come from? And it's like, I seem to recall in Aquaman the Becoming, I don't know. I think Aquaman talked about going to Mars. I think Arthur Curry talked about going to Mars. And I think maybe Frankenstein was mentioned there. But I mean, how the hell do you connect, like, out of the blue? Why would Mira, of all people, think, oh, well, obviously we have an Atlantean mystery going on here. I know who I'll call. Frankenstein on Mars. That just seems like just a natural person you want to call. It's just like, oh my God. I just felt that was totally out of the blue. But in any event, you mentioned all these characters, and I agree that it's really good to see Tula, who I mistakenly thought of as Dolphin, Garth, Mira, Dr. Stephen Shin. It's good that these characters from the Black Manta series by Chuck Brown and from Brandon Thomas from his Aquaman the Becoming series, it's good to see these characters again. But I have to say, out of all the characters, the most immature and disappointing was actually Jackson Hyde. And I really think Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas, I think they overplayed their hand a bit. They overplayed Jackson Hyde. And I know what they were doing. They were trying to say, well, he's the new Aquaman now, but he acted like a boy. He acted like a boy. This was a boy. This was an immature teenager acting out, and he overcame this. And you said it, and I agree with you 100%. We thought, Brandon Thomas did a good job with those first 6 issues of Aquaman the Becoming. Sort of, we thought Jackson Hyde had to learn some lessons from his immature behavior that have already been dealt with, and it feels like a regression here. It's almost as if this series was written before Aquaman the Becoming was, and it seems a little bit disappointing. And now, having said that, there's some potentially intriguing plot lines here, but some frustration as well, and I agree with you. These secrets are just so annoying. I mean, Arthur Curry knows these secrets, and he doesn't, once again, same thing with Suicide Squad, same thing with War on Earth 3, which we reviewed, same thing with Deathstroke, same thing on so many DC titles. It's the same tropey, the reader's the only one in the dark. Everybody knows what's going on except the reader. And it's starting to get a little bit frustrating. This is one note, one dimensional. It's starting to feel really tropey here, and it's getting really frustrating. I got really, at the beginning of this issue, when Jackson Hyde throws that fit, I mean, lives are at stake, Jackson Hyde. And you get into an argument, and you leave Aquaman, you leave Arthur Curry and your father, while Arthur Curry is literally in the midst of telling you what is going on, and you leave. And then you go and you bitch. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I talked about how annoying the mystery was as well. I want to be clear. I don't necessarily think that it's annoying when the heroes and the characters of the story are trying to solve the mystery as well, because they don't know. But no, it's when they know the answer, and the only reason we don't know the answer is because Jackson Hyde threw a fit. Like, exactly. Because then it's a plot device. Yeah. Like, we would know, like, Arthur knows what's going on. Black Manta knows what's going on. There's any number of other characters that know what's going on. We as the readers don't know what's going on because, every time somebody's about to explain it, you change the scene, or disaster strikes, or Jackson Hyde throws a fit. That's the stuff that annoys me. Yeah. If Black Manta and Arthur Curry didn't know either and we're trying to figure it out, then I'm along for the ride with them trying to figure it out. But it's an artificial mystery. Right?
Like, it is. It's forced. And
yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And I was just going to say at the beginning, and I fault, let me proportion my constructive criticism here of both Brandon Thomas and Chuck Brown. I'll ascribe it, what I think is a mischaracterization of Jackson Hyde, or at least a regression of his character here, of the lessons he's already learned. Same thing I can say to Chuck Brown. He knows that, even David Hyde, the Black Manta, why did he intentionally try to antagonize his son? At the end of the Black Manta series, it looked as if David Hyde, the Black Manta, had sort of come to some realization about wanting to maybe get closer to his son Jackson Hyde. And here he has an opportunity, and he's poking at him. He's antagonizing him. He's trying to get his own son to fight him. It seemed this is why this feels like a story that would have taken place before Black Manta, before the character evolution of the revelations of character and sort of redemptive arc that Black Manta David Hyde went through in that 6-issue series by Chuck Brown. And so it just feels a little bit disjointed. And it's what's so disappointing is that these are the same writers that wrote Aquaman the Becoming and Black Manta, and they're combined with this story, and it's like they forgot what they wrote. It's just it's frustrating, and I don't, I mean, you share my criticism, so it's not just me. I'm sure we're not the only ones to have noticed it, but hopefully, by the end of this, as this series progresses here, because this does feel like by doing this, we've wasted at least half this issue is wasted on Jackson Hyde just swimming around, literally just bitching about Arthur and Arthur. He's just complaining. We've got page after page wasted. He bitches to Arthur Curry, then he bitches to Black Manta, and he gets in an argument, fight with them, and leaves. Then he goes and he bitches and whines and complains to Chula, to Mira, to Garth. I mean, come on. This is like a whining, and this is a man, an Aquaman. I mean, this series is called Aquaman. I want to, apparently there's only one out of three. I mean, Garth is more of an Aquaman than this, but anyways, I've said that to death, but yeah.
I will say, so we did have similar criticisms about Robin when it first started. We felt like Joshua Williamson took Damian back a little bit.
That's true.
But that turned out, I talked about it last week with the Robin issue that he did stick the landing. Not that Robin, that series is over. So we can hope for the same here. That eventually he'll get Jackson back. That Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas will get Jackson back, not only to where he was, but even further, like Joshua Williamson did with Damian. I guess we'll see.
But we should, before we go on though, we should mention like how this ends. I mean, Jackson Hyde, you want to talk about still dealing with his anger issues? He literally is torturing Orm for information that he could have gotten from Arthur Curry without having to torture anybody at the end of this issue. So, I mean, again, this isn't, again, I mean, it's kind of comical talking about it, but this guy Jackson Hyde is he's just screwed up. He's a screwed up, disgruntled, bitter. He's a kid. He's not a man. I hate to say it. He's just not a man. I keep doubling down on that, but hey.
Yep, I agree. Well, you mentioned it already. The Swamp Thing is returning under the pen of Ram V. So he's the writer. Mike Perkins still handling the line art. Mike Spicer on colors. Aditya Bidikar does the letters. This was an interesting pivot here from what we have. I mean, it's still telling the same story, but it had a little bit of a different feel, at least for me. What did you think?
It did have a slightly different feel. I kind of like I like that Ram V it is sort of taking off at a different pace, and I kind of like that because we got the same characters. We got Prescott. We're starting off with it's with Prescott Industries, and it's with Jennifer Reese, who is Levi Kamai, who's the new avatar of the Swamp Thing. She's his. Their relationship was sort of undefined in that first 10 issues. But in this issue, we learn more about it because Jennifer Reese goes to Abigail Arcane from the original Swamp Thing series, the Alan Moore series, for help to try to find Levi. And meanwhile, Mr. Pilgrim, who is the leader of, who is the sort of the head CEO of Prescott Industries, he wants to merge his body with the remains of the Pale Wanderer, which we saw at the beginning of this series. And once again, Ram V is combining this idea of literally ideas, that ideas form an avatar, that every avatar of the green or any avatar of anything merges with ideas and starts off as part of a human being. And it's the idea, and an idea can either be a bad idea or a good idea. And again, he plays a lot with that theme here, and I think he does it to great effect. This issue, I should say that this particular issue is called Jericho's Rose, and I googled Jericho's Rose, and apparently the Rose of Jericho, it means it's a resurrection plant, and it symbolizes, and apparently there are many different types of plants that are considered Jericho's rose, or a rose of Jericho, and these types of plants are ones that they dry out and they look like they're dead, but they come back to life. This is apparently a thing. I'm not a botanist. I don't know. I just Googled it. And apparently it symbolizes transformation, renewal, and prosperity. And so I'm assuming that that was a very deliberate and intentional choice by Ram V by calling this particular issue, this 11 issue going up to issue 16, that's the symbolism there, that this idea of transformation, renewal, and prosperity, that's the transformation in this issue where Mr. Pilgrim himself makes that transformation as he merges with the body. There's surgery to sort of merge the body of the Pale Wanderer into Mr. Pilgrim, and he sort of and Dr. Woodrow, who Prescott Industries hired, he's sort of like, orchestrating that surgery and putting that all together. Meanwhile, Abigail, I really like what Abigail initially says to Jennifer Reese. I don't want to help you. I mean, I did this. I've been part of the Green before. I don't want to get involved. But the reason why Abigail comes back to help Jennifer Reese is because she can see that Jennifer loves Levi. And this is really the first time we got confirmation that, because you and I were in our review of the first 10 issues, we weren't sure. What's the relationship between Jennifer? I thought there was a little bit more than friendship there, but every now and then, just when I thought that, you pointed out certain things. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just friends. Maybe are they friends? Are they lovers? Well, it appears that Jennifer has been sort of has some feelings for Levi that have been sort of unexplored, and Abigail picks up on that, and her idea is, well, you know what? I'm going to help you, and I'm going to help you not for some grandiose avatar. I'm going to help you because we're fighting for love. And so I kind of like that. I mean, you fight for many things. Why not for love? And again, you got all these ideas of transformation, renewal, and prosperity. Why not throw love in the mix? And I think it works very well. There's a fantastic scene here. Mike Perkins on the art. I mean, he was just made for this series. Mike Perkins on the art, Mike Spicer on the colors. There's a great scene where you can see them merging the bodies of the decomposed body of the Pale Wanderer to Mr. Pilgrim, and it's just gory as hell, but it's just beautiful, and the colors just it's sort of, the covers are a little bit muted, but in such a way that you really get a sense of the bodily decay of the Pale Wanderer side, and you see the more healthier human side, and the merging of those two ideas, almost like the good idea and the bad idea, and what's going to be the end result here. I thought this was well done. There's a style here that Ram V has. There is a lot of exposition. I know some people aren't big fans of Ram V's. He can be exposition heavy sometimes, and there's been some exposition heavy individual issues of Swamp Thing, but I like it because for me, I like metaphor, I like theme, and Ram V is really good at of really making those things stick, making those ideas stick. So I enjoy it. I enjoy reading his exposition. There's a symbol of a rose that plays out, this symbol of life and prosperity in various panels, and on some of these pages, the coloring of Mike Spicer really just shines, because you see this beautiful red rose amongst this shiny yellow and green of Swamp Thing. It really, really works well, along with some like sparkles and the sparkle and just the light of life itself. And knowing that there's also the symbol of love itself, as Abigail wants to help Jennifer find her love, Levi. And as she takes Jennifer into the avatar of the Green, she says, "Remember, don't look for Swamp Thing, look for Levi." And so there's some interesting ideas that are being played with, and of course the concept of an idea itself is part of the story and has been from the beginning. And so if you've been along for the ride this far, then I'm sure that, well, I hope your readers are enjoying that aspect of the story, because quite frankly, if you haven't been enjoying the metaphor and the theme of this series, I can't imagine you're going to be picking up issue 11. But I love it. There's a reason why Ram V came back for these final 6 issues. I think he really enjoys writing Swamp Thing, and I think many people do as well. So I'm looking forward to it. And finally, at the end, we got Jack Hawksmoor from the Authority, a person who can talk to cities, for him to show up at the end just as this. I'm not even sure if this is I'm not sure what this villain's called now that we've merged the Pilgrim and the Pale Wanderer. If I'm not sure if this new entity has a name yet, but it's great to see Jack Hawksmoor of the Authority, who can he can feel and communicate with the essence of cities, and he feels that something is off about Detroit, and so there must be some kind of new avatar or rot or something's not. The city feels something's off with the city that Jack Hawksmoor can feel, and I got to tell you, with Ram V playing with of all people, Jack Hawksmoor. I did not see this coming, but I'm so glad to see Jack Hawksmoor. I love the Authority, and hey, why not, man? We've got Philip Kennedy Johnson playing with some aspects, with some characters of the Authority that are more common, namely Apollo and Midnighter, but the other members of the new Authority are different. This is a classic Authority character, Jack Hawksmoor. So this was really good to see. So I'm really intrigued to see what role Jack Hawksmoor is going to play here, and where this is going forward. Ramvi has promised a lot of twists and turns in his final story arc. So, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this issue more than I had in any of the previous issues in the part one, the first arc. Um, which I don't know, what does that say for my feeling of Levi Kamei as Swamp Thing? Because he really doesn't show up here except in flashback for the most part.
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
He doesn't, talk. We don't even really know what he's up to. But yeah, the art was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if they had to go on a little bit of a break to give Mike Perkins a chance to draw this, but if that's the case, then I'm all for it. I think Jennifer Reese, especially, as well as Abigail Arcane, are rendered really, really well and beautiful, and it's almost a watercolor type of colors from Mike Spicer. So, yeah, I love this. I thought it was fantastic, and what I what I loved about it, and again, I don't know what this says about my feelings of Levi Kamei as Swamp Thing, but this was the first issue where I felt like he was Swamp Thing, where I didn't feel like, okay, this is a Swamp Thing, a temporary Swamp Thing, right? This is a placeholder Swamp Thing. Holland will get the role back at some point. Um, so I think I really enjoyed it. Um, and yeah, Jack Hawks showing up at the end was a twist I didn't see coming, but is a super fascinating concept because in a lot of ways, Hawksmoor is sort of the anti Swamp Thing. And what I mean by that is, Swamp Thing is the avatar of the green. He's connected to life and living things and one with nature and all that sort of thing. And Jax Hawksmoor is sort of the exact opposite. He can't even survive outside of an urban environment, right? It's not just that he can talk to cities or he's connected to cities. He literally, like, his organs have been replaced. His heart is a magnet. Like, he is
Yeah.
all about the like progress, urbanization of the planet. Like, he is tied into those things. And if you just dropped him out in a forest, he would die. Not only would he have no powers, he would die. So in that way, he's sort of the opposite side of the coin of Swamp Thing, who you could argue if Swamp Thing was on a planet or some kind of dimension or alternate reality or whatever, where there was no plant life and it was just a city, everything was urbanized, he would be very weak. He wouldn't be able to travel, he wouldn't be able to heal, he wouldn't be able to his connection to the green would be severed in a lot of ways. He would be severely weakened. So again, they're just like of all the characters to put together, they're both heroes. Obviously, Levi Kamei still has a lot to learn about being Swamp Thing, but a fascinating character to bring into a Swamp Thing book. So, yeah, I'm super interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, up next we have DC versus Vampires. We're up to issue number 6. Oh boy. We find out who the King of Vampires is there had been hints dropped that it was well, let me give the credits first. Written by James Tynion the fourth and Matthew Rosenberg, art and colors by Otto Schmidt, Simone DeMeo, Danielle Niculo, and Rex Locus. Locus mostly on the colors, although Otto Schmidt colors his own stuff, and then lettered by Tom Napolitano. I will say I wasn't a big fan of having three different people on the line work, but that's just a personal preference. I thought for the most part it worked. Um, but anyway, getting back to this idea of the hints being dropped that the Joker was the one who was king of the vampires, but we kind of already knew that that wasn't the case. And then come to find out, it's someone within the Bat family, and there's an explanation for why he was able to pass the test, hold a cross, drink holy water, that sort of thing. Um, I'm in a lot of ways I'm surprised by who turns out to be king of the vampires because it's a beloved character, and I think that's why they chose it. But in my mind, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I won't say it goes so far as to diminish the character, but it feels a little bit like a gimmick. Like, okay, who is the last person you would think of as king of the vampires, evil kind of person or whatever? Well, Dick Grayson, of course, right? Because he's the embodiment of everything good and noble in the DC universe. So there's no compelling reason, or we haven't been given a compelling reason so far for why it would be Dick Grayson. And so for that reason, making the King of Vampires Dick Grayson just feels like they're going for the cheap shock value sort of thing. Um, the other thing is that it really feels like up to this point we were moving along at a certain pace. This feels like it ramps the pace way up. Um, I wasn't necessarily thinking we were going to get the reveal of the King of the Vampires in this one. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, or that they made a poor choice in terms of pacing, because I don't know what the rest of um, the pacing for the rest of the series is going to be like yet. Maybe it's now all going to be much faster, but if it slows down again, this issue will sort of stand out as like a lot of story packed into very few pages. So I don't know. It just felt different in terms of how much story we got, and not only how fast the story is unfolding now, but like kind of the consequences and the impact. All of a sudden, everything's been turned up to 11 in this one. So still fun, still an interesting series, still some great moments. I mean, Dick Grayson sticking his hand through Batman and holding Bruce's like heart in his hand. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
I also thought the moment where Green Arrow decides to take out Hal was really poignant,
Yeah.
um, because you can tell how painful it was for him to make that choice. And when Batman says something to Ollie about that, um, like, Ollie, you can't just kill. He's like, hey, talk to me when you've had to put one of your own people down. Until then, shut your damn mouth.
Yeah.
He just killed his best friend. So
Yeah.
I liked that was acknowledged by Tynan and Rosenberg. So I'm still enjoying this series. I do question the choice of Nightwing, but I mean, they might make it work. We might find out how Nightwing got corrupted. Maybe I'm just so much of a Dick Grayson fan. I hate seeing seeing him as the big bad, but it might end up working out. We'll see. I'm reserving judgment. Um, it was also tough seeing Jason Todd, who I feel like doesn't get enough credit. He never survives in events like this. He's always making noble sacrifices. Poor Jason Todd. Um, so that was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yeah. I I'm reminded of comments made by Joshua Williamson when he teased Dark Crisis. He said that once the Justice League dies, and this isn't really a spoiler because he's given these interviews. He said this in interviews. He says in the days and months that follow the death of the Justice League and Justice League 75, apparently Nightwing steps up to the plate and he really is the one that leads the heroes when upon the death of the Justice League, and him and he's made it very clear, and not that he needed to, but Nightwing is beloved. Everybody loves Nightwing, and when you think about that, when you suddenly have this iconic image of just red blood red in the background with the black of Batman and the blue of the Nightwing on the Nightwing costume, and taking out Nightwing, taking out Batman, and showing himself to be the vampire, uh, it really is poignant, and you can really see. I mean, what is so what Tinian and Rosenberg do so well in this issue is that the emotions experienced by the members of the Bat family, Jason Todd as he sacrifices himself to give the other members of the Bat family time to escape, Damian as he freaks out over seeing what happened to his father, and his blind rage attack of Nightwing, which ultimately is futile, as Green Arrow escapes, as all these emotions that are coming into play, and even the revelation that I thought was very interesting, that in fact it's revealed here, and this might answer the question you asked: why Nightwing? Well, interestingly enough, it's apparently Starfire's blood. Somewhere along the line, the Queen of Vampires must have discovered a secret of Starfire's blood. That when a vampire is exposed to Starfire's blood, they get some temporary immunity to sunlight and to other weaknesses that vampires normally have. They overcome those weaknesses by an exposure to Starfire's blood. And so, what better way to get Starfire to get Starfire's blood than to control Nightwing, who was beloved in the DC universe? So that may have played a role in their machinations and so you get little hints of what may have gone on behind the scenes even prior to the opening issue. So I thought this was very well done. It's the characterization. I mean, and you take the characterization and then you top it off by just a well choreographed fight scene. The fight scenes here are well choreographed and believable, because on the surface, we gotta ask ourselves, how in the hell can the Bat family withstand an attack from a vampiric Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman? I mean, you think they'd have their hands full, but I actually thought this possessed a degree of verisimilitude in terms of how the Bat family was holding their own along with Green Arrow against Wonder Woman and Hal Jordan. And in particular, Batman having Alfred sneak up on Hal, because Hal, discounted Alfred because he was the only, because he's not he's the butler, as if you're going to worry about the butler, but yet it's Alfred that takes the hand off of Hal Jordan. Just very well done all around. I very happy with this, and this ends with the moment that making it very, very clear that the world is on the precipice of further destruction. That Superman has destroyed the White House. Firestorm is destroying most of nature. Eternal darkness is taking over the earth. This is the dark before the dawn, and it's issue 6. So what's great here, I love the pacing, because we've got the 6 remaining issues will be the movement toward the victory, the rebels of the heroes coming back against the vampires, and all the odds against them. I mean, it might sound tropey on its surface, but it's action-packed and it's character-based, and I love it. And that's one of this is taking the whole concept of a continuity-free universe like this, and when you do something masterful like this, when you take characters that we know and love, and you're free to do more with them, knowing their characterizations in the mainstream universe, but not be restricted by mainstream continuity, and you do it right, you end up with great things like Injustice and great series like this so far. So I was quite happy with this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you know what? I just realized I thought it was in this one, this moment, but now I realize it was in Swamp Thing, and I didn't mention it, and I want to mention it. So there is a moment in Swamp Thing when Mr. Pilgrim stands up after having been combined with the Pale Wanderer, and he undergoes this transformation where he kind of looks more like the Pale Wanderer.
Yeah.
And there's some dialogue that talks about the idea spreading and what have you. There's one scene that's out in space with some Green Lantern.
Yes.
Which I thought was super interesting.
And it's not a Green Lantern that I recognize, because it seemed to be a Green Lantern with blue skin on his head. So it's weird.
Yeah. I wanted to point that out. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Batman Beyond the White Knight. which, as Rocky indicated earlier, not wasn't Black Label when it was first released, but has retroactively been called Black Label. Other people call it the Sean Gordon Murphy verse. You know, whatever you want to call it. It's White Batman White Knight was such a huge hit that DC basically told Sean Gordon Murphy, "Hey, you can do whatever you want. You can have your own universe." And he's told multiple stories in it now. We had a Harley Quinn series. Now we're getting the Batman Beyond series, which I like that Batman Beyond the White Knight because it's not so far in the future, but we still see a Batman Beyond character. And there's hints here, which I didn't know about this one. Apparently, there's going to be a Sean Gordon Murphy versus Red Hood series coming as well. So,
Yeah.
I
Is that a
thought
one
this was.
shot? I think it's a one shot. Is it actually a series?
I don't know. I don't know. It is mentioned in here though.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Sean Gordon Murphy handles the script and the art. Dave Stewart does the colors and world design on letters. And yeah, this was pretty solid. What'd you think, Rocky?
Uh, I'm Sean Gordon Murphy. I picked up his he did a creator owned plot holes, which I quite enjoyed. I love his. I really enjoy his art, and I got his artist print for that series. And man, Batman Beyond the White Knight. I've been loving this series from the beginning, and I particularly love his version of Harley Quinn. I find it fascinating, and I'm not. I mean, full disclosure, I'm not a big Batman Beyond fan. But to be very blunt, this doesn't feel like Batman Beyond to me. It's just using the name Batman Beyond, but it's using it in a far more interesting way. This is, uh, this is. I mean, this continues from the previous series. Batman is Bruce Wayne is in prison, and he's a model. Not only is Bruce Wayne a model prisoner, but he's even broken up a couple of prison riots, and in fact, he might get out even extra early because he's so damn good at breaking up prison riots. And meanwhile, Gotham City is I think Harley is like keeping things under control there. There's some machinations going on. Bruce Wayne tried to set up various he tried to set up various, I guess, foundations to help Gotham and to help the people of Gotham move forward and to help them with social programs and the like. But there's another billionaire, Mr. Powers, who managed to manipulate and get in control of a lot of Wayne Enterprises and is using it to create more weapons and tech and taking over through the police and the Gotham PD. And Bruce Wayne knows that it's being corrupted, and so this series involves him just breaking out of prison with the help of Jason Todd. Jason Todd, interestingly enough, appears to have been the first Robin, and you get hints of the dysfunctional relationship between Jason Todd and Bruce Wayne, but there's sort of a healing of that relationship here. And then it hints at what the history of the Robins was here. Jason Todd was the first Robin, and I think Dick Grayson was the second, if I read this correctly. And it was very well done here. And there's this Terry McGinnis in this universe that ends up going into the Batcave and stealing a Batman armor, which was apparently quite deadly. And it's Bruce Wayne in prison upon finding out that somebody had stolen the armor. Then he really thinks that it's time, that something is amiss, that this Powers guy is up to something, and so he wants to escape too. I love the characterization here. I love the way that with Sean Gordon Murphy, he's tying in all of his series so far, because this is the third, right? Am I missing one? I think this is the third series.
I think it's the third, yeah.
And it's all, I mean, this is his world. This is the Murphyverse. I mean, this is the Murphyverse, and DC, I mean, let's face it, DC right now I think they need a win. I think they need a little bit of a boost, because I think they've been down in terms of maybe some PR and perception wise out there. So it's good that this comes out, because, take advantage of Sean Gordon Murphy, or I guess he prefers to go by Sean Murphy now. And this Murphyverse, I'm loving this. So many people are looking forward to this. I know a lot of guys at the comic shop. They are detractors of DC right now, but they're coming back for this series because they love Sean Murphy. And so that says something. And I thought this was a really good opening issue. I enjoyed this. I love an older Bruce Wayne. I just love an older, grittier Bruce Wayne. And Sean Murphy illustrates him so well with the beard. He just looks like kind of a kick-ass, you know, mother effer. And it really comes off very well. I'm really intrigued by what role Harley Quinn's going to play in this series, what role she plays. There was always a hint of a relationship or a love interest between Harley Quinn and Bruce Wayne. Is that going to be pursued in this series? Are we finally going to see Bruce Wayne maybe get it on with Harley Quinn? I think that would be a first. So, anyways, I quite enjoyed it, and there's Commissioner Gordon, and then there's Dick Grayson, who's also involved with the police. There's Montoya. There's so many moving parts here. I only read this once. I wish I would have been able to read it at least 3 times before I gave my review. But I really enjoyed this, and yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I think Sean Murphy's giving an interesting tone, and the changes that he makes are subtle, but they're really fertile ground for story. Like the whole idea of Jason Todd being the first Robin, I was like, wait, did we know that previous to this? I don't remember. I don't remember reading that anything previous. And so little things like that he throws in, where it's a change to the Batman mythos that we know, but it opens up so much possible story. And then of course the whole reason that Batman is in uh, prison has to do with relationship with Jack Napier and with Harley and everything that went wrong. And supposedly Jack Napier Joker was dead, and then he shows up here. And I just love I love the way that Murphy draws him, right? Like I talked a lot about how much I enjoyed the Harley Quinn White Knight series, because again, it gets away from the goofy, zany Harley that I don't really care about. It gives her more agency, makes her more interesting. And I vastly prefer the Murphy version of the Joker because he's less insane and feels more. He feels less like an agent of chaos and more like a actual formidable foe for Batman. Like more of a thinking man's villain. And so yeah, and I just like the way that he's rendered. I love the character design, and that page where he shows up, and it's on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. The fact that the shadows on the wall, as Bruce Wayne is looking up at Jack Napier, the shadows on the wall are Batman and Joker, as opposed to Bruce Wayne and Jack Napier. So little things like that Sean Murphy does really, really well. So yeah, really looking forward to the series. And I think you might be right, Rocky, because when Jason Todd is talking to Batman, and they're talking about Dick Grayson, the editor's note does say, "See the upcoming book, Batman White Knight presents Red Hood #1." So it doesn't say see the upcoming series. So you might be right. That Batman White Knight verse or Batman Murphy verse Red Hood book looks like it may just be a one shot. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, up next, another Black Label book. This one's by Jock. It's oversized. It's part 2. It's Batman One Dark Knight. As I said, by Jock. Story and art are by him. Clem Robbins does the letters. I didn't enjoy this one as much as I did the first issue. This one felt a little disjointed to me. It's basically Batman who's carrying this character EMP across Gotham City, trying to get him to Blackgate Prison, where he can be locked down. Meanwhile, there's this woman Vasquez who's supposed to be this victim advocate, and all kind of enraptured and sort of involved with law enforcement in Gotham City, and apparently, unbeknownst to Jim Gordon, unbeknownst to a lot of the powers that be at the city, she's apparently extremely corrupt and working with some of the gangs in Gotham, and eventually tracks down in this issue EMP's son, who apparently has some similar powers to EMP, and then hauls him off to do her bidding, I'm assuming. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Um, so yeah, this wasn't that felt like the most consequential event of the book. The fact that this Vasquez, this corrupt Gotham official, was able to track down EMP's son and has him under her thumb. Other than that, the rest of the issue sort of felt like setup to me. What I will say is that Jock's art is beautiful, and it really is a very moody story. I mean, last issue EMP went off, right? Electromagnetic pulse. That's his name. That's his power, and so that has knocked out a lot of the power in Gotham City. So it allows Jock to be able to play with a lot of blues and grays and blacks, and he does a fantastic job with that, which gives a very moody book. Um, I also thought, and again, it feels just a little bit like a plot device, but hey, it works. It makes sense. The fact that there are no sources of power in Gotham City, they've all been knocked out, and EMP as a character, even to some extent when he's unconscious, his body is constantly craving electricity, electrical activity. Um, that's what he feeds on. And so there's no other power around. He's actually drawing a little bit of the electrical power from Batman's brain, right? The electrical synapses, and it's causing Batman to feel like he's slow and he can't think as well, can't make tactical decisions as well. So it again, it's a little bit of a plot device, but it does work really, really well. It explains why these non-superpowered gangs are able to kind of hang with Batman, because this wouldn't have been a big deal, back in, say, the late 80s or early 90s. But we've talked many times on this podcast or show about how they've leveled up Batman so much that he's so powerful now. You'd be like, man, how come Batman's having trouble taking out just these gangs, these gang members with no superpowers? So I love that Jock threw little things like that in. It works on a really, really good level. So again, didn't quite enjoy it as much as the first issue, because I didn't feel like there was as much contrast between the story beats. This is kind of all just pedal to the metal in a lot of ways. It's all kind of one note. But I'm definitely in for the next issue to see how it all comes together. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think I mentioned this movie when we read the first issue. I think it was the movie with Ethan Hawke, Assault on Precinct 13.
Yep.
Reminds me of that a little bit, where they had to get to a particular spot and they only had one night to do it. And this is really testing Batman. This isn't like super uber Batman. This is human Batman doing his best. He's just relying on his fighting skills. He's stated more than once he's running out of weapons on his utility belt. And of course he's potentially psychologically and mentally compromised because of the EMP interfering with the electro impulses in his own thought processes. And meanwhile, you got this corrupt Vasquez, who I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what she's got going on behind the scenes, but she's got her own machinations. She doesn't want Commissioner Gordon, finding out what's going on, and she's trying to cover something up. And this idea of this son, the relationship between the EMP guy, what's his name again? Remember his name? I'm sorry. Could your mute's on, I think.
Edward. His name's Edward.
Right. But Edward's son. I mean, that's an interesting. That's an interesting interplay there. Like his relationship with the son, and his son is manifesting that power. That's interesting. That's also potentially dangerous as well. I'm hoping that, we're 2 issues in. I'm hoping in the 3rd issue something different happens, because Jock has done a pretty good job illustrating the different types of situations that Batman can find himself in, basically just confronting various different types of gangs in the heart of Gotham as he's trying to get from point A to point B. And so far it still feels fresh. It dragged a little bit here, I thought, in parts, but it still kept me intrigued. And for a fairly dark, like a lot of the pages here, Jock does experiment with a slightly different color palette on different levels of darkness, which I thought was good, because let's face it, when you got he could have, if he wasn't as creative as he is, every single page could have had the same level of tone, the same level of darkness, same level of, but he doesn't. He plays with the colors a bit there, with fires, with light, with the concept of the EMP. I mean, just the very concept of the villain itself. You can imagine multiple different colors in a city that is fluctuating with electricity and electrical impulses and the like. So he you really get an appreciation of just how good an artist he is. And the story is pretty decent too. So I'm looking forward to the final. I think it's only one issue left, right? Is this 3 issues long?
Yeah, it's a three. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
three issue.
Yeah.
So one
No,
more.
that's good. I like that.
All right, on to the next event. I guess we'll say. I think there's two bookend issues: Shadow War Alpha and Shadow War Omega, and then I think it crosses over into Robin and Deathstroke. I'm not sure if it crosses over into Batman or not. I don't think it does. I know. I take that back. It does, because right here on the last page, to be continued at Batman 122 out next week. So it's the Shadow War event. As I said, this is Shadow War Alpha Part 1, written by Joshua Williamson. Victor Bogdanovic does the pencils and inks. Daniel Enriquez contributes some inking help. Mike Spicer's on the colors. Troy Petrie is on letters. Yeah, we get the death of Ra's al Ghul in this one. What'd you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I thought it's funny. Like, it wasn't really surprising. I knew going into it that I didn't believe going into it, and frankly, those of us who've been following, reading the Robin series, I don't think any of us believe that Ra's al Ghul actually, or that pardon me, that Deathstroke. Let me rephrase that. Those of us who've been reading Deathstroke Incorporated and who have been reading uh, Joshua Williamson's Robin, I think we all knew that there's no way that Deathstroke would kill Ra's al Ghul. And of course, it's not Deathstroke. Deathstroke does not kill Ra's al Ghul here. It's all misdirection, and it's not surprising. But what I like about it is that it is consistent with the plot lines and the storyline that's been going on with Deathstroke Incorporated, and it flows nicely out of Robin. So Joshua Williamson, unlike some of his contemporaries at DC, he's much better at crafting a story and at pacing and at making this feel more cohesive than some of the other stories we've been reading. The legacy of Ra's al Ghul here. Ra's al Ghul has come to a crossroads in his life where he has come to the realization through his vast career of being a criminal and an environmental terrorist, et cetera, and he wants to essentially turn himself. He wants to turn himself in. He wants to try a different approach, and he wants to reveal some secrets to the world. So he wants to surrender. And of course, at first, this shocks his daughter Talia al Ghul, saying, like, "What are you, crazy? Why do you want to surrender? I mean, I just I just finished dealing with Leviathan. I'm a member of the Justice League Totality Satellite, and I mean, we've got things on the go here, and we just had this this big tournament, and now you want to turn yourself in." Well, Ra's al Ghul wants to turn himself in, and he's got some plans. He wants to reveal some secrets, and of course, when Ra's al Ghul turns himself in, it gets the attention of the world, and one can imagine that there's a lot of various players that may not want Ra's al Ghul to be shooting his mouth off in terms of all the stuff that Ra's al Ghul knows. You can imagine this guy's an immortal. He's died quite a few times, but Ra's al Ghul also is dying. He knows that he's dying. We know from what's gone on in Robin and what we've learned from Deathstroke Incorporated that the Lazarus Pit is poisoned, and that we know from the pages of Robin that Ra's al Ghul's own mother was poisoned from the Lazarus Pit over centuries of use, or perhaps overuse, or perhaps from some other machinations of a nefarious third party we have yet do not know of. The Lazarus Pit seems to be poisoned, or it's compromised. So much so that when Talia ends up being wounded, when Ra's al Ghul is seemingly assassinated by a person that looks like Deathstroke, and Talia Ghul is wounded, Talia Ghul refuses to heal herself. She chooses not to use the Lazarus Pit. She chooses not to use the Lazarus Pit to heal herself because she knows that the Lazarus Pit is compromised in some way, and she might in effect be directly killing herself. So what's interesting is, upon Ra's al Ghul being killed, and it looks fairly obvious that it's Deathstroke that did it, Damian freaks out. Batman, of course, Batman knows that something is amiss, something is wrong. He's not. They had a huge net. He had a Wayne Enterprise satellite checking out the whole area. How on earth could I mean, you got security run by Batman. How could you get through that? Well, obviously there was some there's an in-story explanation as to how that might be. There was a tunnel that was used, et cetera, et cetera. Point being is that whoever did this, it likely wasn't Deathstroke, but of course, Deathstroke right now is busy, as we know from Deathstroke Incorporated. He's trying to create his own criminal empire, his secret society of supervillains, because he's preparing for the Great Darkness. Or he knows what's coming too. So just like Amanda Waller knows what's coming, and she's taken Earth 3 off the playing field in War for Earth 3, Deathstroke has seen some visions of the future as well. And so part of Deathstroke's way of dealing with the potential future Dark Crisis is that he's putting together this secret society of supervillains, and so he is actually surprised. Deathstroke is surprised that that he's a suspect for taking out Ra's al Ghul. He's taken by surprise, but of course Talia al Ghul is angry. She wants to wipe out Deathstroke. She wants to take him out completely, and ultimately it ends with Deathstroke being attacked, and that's really how it ends because Talia al Ghul puts together a massive army of individuals who look to be quite powerful. I don't recognize the majority of this powerful group that Talia has put together, but it looks fairly intimidating to say the least. And they're all going to be attacking Deathstroke and taking out presumably some of the secret society of supervillains there. And yeah, so this is action-packed. This is Joshua Williamson, in my view, at his most fun. This was action-packed and fun. I enjoyed reading this. And I didn't even mention the character moments. One of the reasons you and I talked about in Robin, when Robin first started out in the early issues, we had our doubts and reservations about Williamson, but he won us over through his good characterization of Damian. Damian evolved as a character in Robin, and he grew into a fine, he seems to be actually developing into a more mature young man, finally, outside of that narcissistic little prick 13-year-old we began to resent and hate after a while, who was, toying and hiding supervillains in his basement. But here we got some really good character moments between Damian and and Batman. There's a really gut-wrenching scene where Batman has a choice. He can either save the body of Ra's al Ghul, or he can save Damian. He could save Ra's al Ghul's body and resurrect him in the Lazarus pit, but he would risk losing Damian, and he chose to save Damian, and Raz's body was completely burned to nothingness. So Ra's al Ghul would appear to be absolutely dead. You can't resurrect him anymore. A gut-wrenching moment for Damian, and where Batman says, I saved you because you're my son. So finally some moments here. There's continuity of character here flowing from the Robin series into this opening issue that works very well. I really like it for that reason. And since we already know that Deathstroke has a new son that is the genetic offspring of Ra's al Ghul and Talia, we know that's coming. We know that from what's happened in Deathstroke Incorporated. The father-son dynamic and the plot points in this series, I think, are really going to come to a head. And then you throw in this shadow war with Talia, with her father-daughter issues. I mean, man, this was so fun. This is an expensive issue. I mean, I think I don't know what the price tag on this thing is. I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how much this cost. Is this a
Yeah, I don't think they
$5.99?
normally I don't know that they put the prices on the press preview copies that we get, but
Oh, it's
yeah,
$5.99. It's $5.99 on the
yeah, that sounds
but
great.
so it's an expensive opening issue, but so for we Canadians we're paying about $8, but I think it would probably be worth it because the art here, I really enjoyed the art. I really enjoyed this all around. I'm looking forward to see where this goes and how this resolves. So what do you think?
Yeah, it is double size. You get like
Yeah.
38 pages, so not quite double size. I guess double size would be 40 pages, but you get 38 pages of story. So yeah, I agree with everything he said. So much fun. It is a more mature Damien that we've gotten, and I appreciate the journey uh, that Joshua Williamson took Damien on. Because here's the thing: the way Damien acts when his grandfather is killed, he does get a little emotional, and he does lash out a little bit at Bruce. But I didn't take that as being petulant or immature, like I may have at some point if we hadn't had other character growth for Damien in other books. So I think that worked. One of the things that we've talked about in this episode is DC dragging a mystery out too long or forcing a mystery. Here's a perfect example of not doing that. Joshua Williamson could have dragged it out. It could have been like, oh, was it Deathstroke that killed him? Was it not? Was it a person? Somebody impersonating Deathstroke? No, we find out right here in the first issue. It's not Deathstroke. It's some sort of imposter. Um, and obviously, all hell's going to break loose. And why did they kill Roz and all that kind of thing? Um, and I do now. I do have a little bit of a theory, and I don't know if I'm just kind of stuck in this in my head because over in Trial of the Amazons, my theory is that Hippolyta killed herself. I wonder if Ra's al Ghul didn't hire, or he wouldn't even have to hire, right? Because the whole thing is he runs a League of Assassins. If he didn't have one of his assassins assassinate himself to take himself off the playing field, and then supposedly blow up his body, but his body's not really blown up, and now he can try to do this new sort of behind the scenes machinations to make the world a better place that he was espousing in his press conference without the consequences that he might normally face being wanted and hunted as this known terrorist. So
Yeah.
purely a theory. I don't feel as strongly about it as I feel about the Hippolyta theory I have. Could be possible, but otherwise I agree with what you said. It's a great start. It's a lot of fun. Um, if we're talking about, and let's assume that Aquaman is an event. So if we're talking about, this is the final event here of the four that are going on. I mean, obviously, War for Earth 3 just ended. We've got Trial of the Amazons. We got Aquaman. We got Shadow War. This immediately jumps up to the top of the list, and it's not close. So take that for what you will.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right, on to the last book. It's an anthology. There's 3 stories. It's Sensational Wonder Woman Special Number 1. The first story is called Hell Hath No Flurry, written by Paula Sevenbergen, pencils by Paul Pelletier, with inks by Norm Ratman, Adriana Lucas on colors, and Pat Brosso on letters. Then we have The Threat of Doom. I could be mistaken, but as far as I know, this is the first book or first story Scott Collins has ever written. He's also the artist on the series. And then we have letters by Ryan Christie. And then the last story is written by Stephanie Phillips, with art by Aletha Martinez. Dexter Vines and Vicente Cifuentes handle the inks. Wendy Broom and Carrie Stachin on colors, with Becca Carey on letters. I'll just go through them really quickly. The first one I thought was okay. It felt kind of like a classic DC story with this like snowman frosty type villain showing up, and some kids who are doing some cosplay contestation or whatnot, dress up like a superhero day or whatever at school. And so yeah, it feel good story, and kind of like I said, classically DC. The second story by Collins, I thought, and again, I'm prefacing this by the guy hasn't done a lot of writing, and I think for an early effort, whether this is his first effort or he's done very little, I think he deserves credit for doing a relatively good job. But the pacing on it is a little wonky, and the ideas are a little out there, and even the dialogue at times feels a little stilted. So nobody's going to be confusing this with the greatest written comic of all time anytime soon. That being said, I wonder why his art is so much better here than I've seen him in a long time. Like, I absolutely love the art. So I don't know if it's because he's writing to his own strengths, or he went and put in extra effort on the line work because he wanted to put his best foot forward for a story. Like I don't know, but I thought the art was really really fantastic. But in a lot of ways, this ends up feeling a little bit like a Doctor Fate story rather than a Wonder Woman story.
Yeah.
Dr. Fate has as much agency and as much to do with the resolution of the story as Wonder Woman.
That's actually
So
why I liked it. Actually,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
Well,
was a
I mean,
nice
which is
change.
interesting, but as a Wonder Woman story, it just feels a little bit
Uh,
lacking. And then my favorite story is actually the one at the end, which is called Swapped, which is no surprise because I'm a huge Stephanie Phillips fan. And Wonder Woman and this young teenage girl in a museum basically go Freaky Friday and swap bodies because of a spell that Cersei puts on them. And I really enjoyed it because what I liked about it was having Wonder Woman in that young teenage body, but still showing her wisdom and her agency and her ability to inspire others. And then you have this teenage girl, a little reckless, a little overconfident in the body of Wonder Woman, and not realizing in a lot of ways the impact or the importance or the consequences, or how much she's going to be relied on to really help save the day and solve this, not only solve the problem of their bodies being swapped, but to stop Cersei. So I thought the story worked really, really well and highlighted some of the things that are most interesting and most fun and most unique about Diana. And so that worked on a lot of levels. Plus, the Aletha Martinez art was absolutely fantastic. Um, and one of the things I loved about Cersei, like so often when we see Cersei drawn, she has like this really long flowing red hair, and I don't know, I have absolutely no idea if Aletha Martinez did this on purpose or not. But in this story, Cersei has short hair that's kind of longer on top. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Stephanie Phillips, or yeah, Stephanie Phillips haircut. Like I keep getting her and Stephanie Williams
yeah.
mixed up. But no, Stephanie Phillips. It reminds me of Stephanie Phillips haircut. So I thought that was really fantastic. I don't know if, again, that was done on purpose, but I thought it was a really cool, almost like Stephanie Phillips is the inspiration for Cersei's look here, and she's the villain. So I thought that was a lot of fun. Anyway, what are your thoughts on these three stories?
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit torn. I probably have to go with, in terms of my favorite. I actually like Friend of Doom. Was my favorite story because Doctor Fate was in it, and I kind of like I guess I credit the Justice League Dark series for. I've actually been enjoying Wonder Woman as a member of Justice League Dark more so than as a member of the Justice League period, or the Justice League of America. So I kind of like Doctor Fate there, and I agree with you that Scott Collins' art was particularly good. The level of detail that Scott Collins put into his story on even the most innocuous of panels, the level of detail, extra effort that he put in on the fine line work on some of almost insignificant panels. He could have gotten away with just filling it in some of the pages in with color, but he chose detailed line work showing the spells, almost like when Doctor Strange utilizes uses magic. You see all this fancy intricate little weaves and webs. You see that with Doctor Fate weaving his magic, and it's almost like he chose Doctor Fate because he could show off his artistic skill more. Like you said, he was basically writing to his own skill level, and I think Scott Collins actually challenged himself artistically more so than most other writers challenge him when he draws for other writers. So I thought that was very interesting. And this, I actually like this Dracum character, this Godzilla-like character is actually more interesting than Godzilla. I enjoyed it. I had the most fun with it because it was the most crazy and zany. And as I said, I've been enjoying Wonder Woman as a member of Justice League Dark because it challenges Wonder Woman differently. Wonder Woman, because she's always a lot of her traditional challenges always seem to delve down into her being sort of like preachy and base and her magic lasso and what have you. I like magic based villains can sometimes challenge her a little bit more than others. And now I say that knowing full well that Cersei, Stephanie Phillips used Cersei in the final story called Swapped. I didn't mind it, but I did think it was a little bit cliche with Swapped. But at the same time, this was like, I think this was 42 pages long, this story. This is a long story, and it read like a movie. So kudos to Stephanie Phillips. This really read well. It flowed very well. It was an easy read. It was entertaining. This was Wonder Woman when she switches body with the teenager named Devlin or Devon. She ends up literally going to school. She Wonder Woman in the body of a young teenager at school. You know, she does well in sports. She contradicts the history teacher. She corrects the teachers. She's very much what you'd expect. So kind of a little bit predictable, maybe, but fun, a little bit tropey, but all in a good way. And it's ideally suited for these types of these types of stories, these types of specials. And again, just very well done. And Letha Martinez, the art was really good. I do want to give a call out in the first story though, and that is to the villain in the opening story with the Blue Snowman and Byron Brilliant. That character, the writer Paula Sevenbergen, I think does a really good job. Seemed a little bit corny with the freeze ray and what have you, but it's kind of interesting that I've never seen. I can't remember this Brilliant character. I can't remember ever seeing her before, but I'm quite certain it's not a new one. But I think it's probably a character from the Golden Age, if I was to venture a guess, or perhaps somebody can correct me because I'm trying to remember the last time that character sounds familiar with the Blue Snowman. So I thought that was interesting. I love the message with this kid. This kid, I'm guessing that this young boy who wants to dress up like a Wonder Woman, maybe he's got, he says something. I thought it was a really nice moment at the end. And I know that we live in a day and age where there's of identity politics and what have you, but I thought this was very tastefully done where this young boy said that, I heard that when he says to Wonder Woman at the end, I heard you tell that criminal to be their real self instead of hiding behind a costume. But what if wearing a costume like yours helps me feel more like my true self, at least for now? And Wonder Woman says, well, in that case, I think you need a better headpiece. And she gives him her tiara. I thought that was a very nice scene. It wasn't preachy because I've criticized Wonder Woman for being preachy. It wasn't forcing any political idea down you. It was just respecting a young boy's feelings. He was heroic. He acted bravely, and she rewarded him with her tiara. And he can be whoever he wants to be. And I thought it was just a beautiful moment for that story to end. And a good title, Hell Hath No Flurry, which I thought was kind of comical. So overall, I actually enjoyed this better than a lot of the issues of Wonder Woman Black and Gold. This could easily have been, could easily have been a Wonder Woman Black and Gold compilation as well, with just obviously just changing up the coloring with just black, white, and gold. But overall, pretty good. And also, I'm sure lots of people are speculating that maybe Stephanie Phillips is going to be the new writer on Wonder Woman moving forward. Who knows? I mean, maybe this was just Stephanie Williams continuing to get her feet wet with Wonder Woman. Of course, she's writing Wonder Woman Evolution, and now she had a 40-page plus story here in this Sensational Comics special. So I got to wonder if maybe Stephanie Phillips is the up-and-coming writer on Wonder Woman once Clunrad finished their contract.
Yeah, I mean, I would be all for that. I'm a big Stephanie Phillips fan. You know what's interesting though is you think about bringing somebody on like that. Oh, I want a good long run, 5-6 years, whatever. They don't even want. It's so strange to me. We used to have these classic runs. You think about Peter David's run on Hulk or Chris Claremont on X-Men. These runs that lasted over a decade, and they're just so good. Mark Waid on Flash. That wasn't a decade, but Jeff Johns on Green Lantern. These were good long runs, and you just don't get that anymore. They don't want that anymore. The companies want 20, 25 issues max, and you're out the door. I don't understand that. I really don't. Like, why not have if something's selling and somebody's doing a great job, why not keep them on there longer? It's kind of strange. So anyway, that does it for the regular issues, everybody. There are a few collections out today. So Challenge of the Super Sons trade paperback is out. That collects the recent Challenge of the Super Sons digital series. There is a DC poster portfolio of Jim Lee art. This is volume 2 of that. And then Batman the Dark Detective volume 7 trade paperback. And this collects Adventures from Batman 474, Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 27, Detective Comics 634 to 638, Detective Comics 641, Detective Comics 643, and Detective Comics Annual 4. So it's Batman as a detective, and especially that Detective Comics Annual 4 is a really great issue. So yeah, that does it for this episode. I recently got to sit down with another bucket list creator who I've wanted to have on the show to chat for quite a while. Now, he's been on the show before, but specifically to talk about the DC animated movie Constantine that he wrote. I got to interview him at New York Comic Con in 2018, but J.M. DeMatteis came on specifically just to talk about his Ben Reilly series that's going on at Marvel right now. And of course, we had to touch on things like Kraven's Last Hunt and
I
Justice League International.
that I got a full disclosure. That's one of my that's one of my probably one of my most favorite interviews you've done in a while. I just loved you. You guys went off on a tangent a little bit, and you started talking about theme
Yeah.
various things. And I actually enjoyed that part of the interview the most, where he sort of you talked about his different approaches and to Craven and The Last Hunt and to Ben Reilly and the motivations behind why he did and why he wrote what he did. And it's a very good interview. I definitely encourage people listening to check it out.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rocky. It's kind of similar to the Jerry Conway interview that I did.
Yeah.
You know, when I talk to these older creators, they've been around so long and they've answered those questions of, you know, the common questions about their seminal work so many times. It's I think they like diving in a little deeper. So hopefully we were able to do that. I was supposed to have an interview with Kevin Scott, but due to some scheduling issues, that has been delayed. But it will be coming up at some point.
And he's the
So
writer of Titans United, right? He wrote that
yep,
series Titans United, which we enjoyed so
Titan
much.
United. Yep, and he also has a series with Vault called Secret Service that we'll talk about as well. It's got a
Yeah.
bunch of Star Wars work. So we'll be covering all that at some point in the future when he comes back on the show. And then the last thing I'll mention, another episode that came out yesterday, is a quick conversation with a woman named Jennifer Stevens Baucom. And she is the sister of Dave Stevens, the creator of the Rocketeer,
Oh wow.
uh, and and some other pulp characters, and just a fantastic artist taken by cancer far too soon. There is a campaign running on Zoop, the crowdfunding platform right now, for a Dave Stevens drawn Rocketeer puzzle, and it's the back cover of the first issue of Rocketeer. It's a very famous, iconic image. It's called the Bullseye image, and it's a black background, a red bullseye, and the Rocketeer standing on the edge of a roof, holding his pistol, helmet on, jetpack. Super amazing piece of art. You can get it on a puzzle. There's also a print available from the campaign and a shirt. And the shirt is black, just like the
Wow.
background of the image. So it's all negative space, and you just
I,
get the Rocketeer standing on the edge of the building. So I encourage everybody. There's a link in the show notes for that to go to the campaign, or just go to zoop.gg and you can find the campaign. The puzzle itself comes in this really awesome box that has like a bookcase type cover. You know, it's like opening a book that has like a magnetic flap. Uh, the puzzle's in a mesh bag. I'm thinking, man, I might get it and like put the puzzle together and have the puzzle framed, or I might just keep the puzzle in the mesh bag to put together, you know, over and over again, but then have the box on my bookshelf. Like it has a nice, like, you know, the side of the box looks like the spine of a book. So you could put it on your bookshelf or you could store stuff in there. It's like,
yeah.
it's just a beautiful product. So
I,
encourage everybody to go and check out that interview with Dave Stevens' sister. It's so clear that, you know, they miss Dave and they just want to honor his memory. So
I
be sure and check that out.
I have to say, I have to interject and say, I love Dave Stevens. I'm only missing about 5 of his comic books that I'm aware of, and I searched for them on eBay. I'm a huge Dave Stevens fan, a huge Rocketeer fan. I had no idea you talked with her. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I am definitely getting that puzzle, man. That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
right now I'm going to go to the site right now. I know there's an early bird special. I think it's for the first 2 days. So you have a little while left, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Uh,
What's
and
that site again? Could you say that site? What's that site?
Zoop, .gg. So ZOOP
Yeah.
.gg.
GG.
Yeah. So the early bird special is the Bullseye Bundle, and it's available for the first 48 hours. So if you're
Wow.
hearing this on Tuesday, you need to go right now
I'm doing it.
because it's
I'm
going
doing
to
it.
end Tuesday at midnight. So the Bullseye Bundle, you get the shirt, the puzzle, and the print all for $72.
Done.
So the puzzle is $30 on its own, the print is 25, and the shirt is 25. So if you get them all together, you're saving yourself $8.
No problem.
So yeah, it's definitely go
Sold.
check it out. Yeah, go listen to the interview, the chat. It's real short. I think we talked for about 15 minutes. Jennifer and I did. So
All right.
yeah, and then this weekend I'll be at WonderCon in Anaheim. If anybody's out there, I'll be tweeting throughout the show. Be sure you follow me on social media. I may have some things to give away. It's been a while since I've done a WonderCon. I think the last time I did a WonderCon, I gave away a bunch of iPads. I'm not saying I'm giving away iPads this time. Don't think that. But I do have some books possibly, or stickers, or lanyards, or something to give away if you track me down at the show. So anyway, Rocky, anything you want to plug? I know you've been super busy with the day job.
I don't have not in particular. I might do I might be compelled to do my toilet top three, uh, which is sort of like every now and then I do my toilet top three that comic books that really annoy me. But quite frankly, I don't do it every week because actually I've been generally I only very special comics that I particularly have a disdain for make the toilet top three. So I don't always, I don't do it every week, but I think I might be compelled to do it this week. But we'll see. We'll see. I am very busy, but we'll see. Every now and then I'm good for a good rant. So
Yeah, you are for sure. Well, let's end on a positive note.
okay.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite book of these? I mean, there's a couple.
Ah,
I would say
wow.
at least four contenders. Swamp Thing was great. DC versus Vampires, Shadow War
Yeah.
Alpha,
You know what?
Batman Beyond the White Knight.
Yeah, I would have to say for my out of continuity stories, I would have to say DCV Vampires. I really enjoyed the character work that Tinian and Rosenberg did for DCV Vampires. I thought it was very good, and that revelation of about Nightwing, I thought that was very good. And I gotta, oh man, probably a close second, or I guess for an in continuity story. I probably would have to go with Shadow War Alpha even over Ram v Swamp Thing because I'm really impressed with how Joshua Williamson, how consistent Shadow War Alpha is flowing out of Deathstroke Incorporated and Robin. I think Joshua Williamson has done a really good job. He's handling he's got so many moving parts. He's like a juggler, but instead of 3 balls, he's got like 6 or 7 balls going, and he's doing a fairly consistent job for DC. So I got to give him props.
All right. Well, I asked you for one. You gave me two.
Well,
In
I had to
continuity, out of
cheat a little bit.
continuity.
I mean,
Well, no, I'm glad you did cheat because it makes it easier for me because I hadn't even decided. Am I going to pick Shadow War Alpha or am I going to pick Batman Beyond the White Knight? They're both so good. Which one do I
they
pick?
are.
Which
Yeah.
one do I pick? I don't know. I don't know. It's like Sophie's choice. But since you went with two, in continuity and out, then it makes it easy for me. In continuity, I'll go with Shadow War Alpha. Out of continuity, I'm going with Batman Beyond the White Knight. I
There you
think the
go.
implications of Jason Todd being the first Robin is fascinating. The implications of Jack Napier still being alive. Oh my God, fascinating. Bruce Wayne finally, after being the model prisoner, as you mentioned, finally breaks out.
Mhm.
Yeah, so good. So good. I, I have seen Sean Gordon Murphy at shows before. I've talked to him before. I've never invited him on the show. Um, I know at times he has been a controversial figure. Reading this Batman Beyond the White Knight, all I could think was, man, I want to get Sean Murphy on the show so bad and talk about this. So see if I can hook that up.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts before we close it down here?
No, just I wish you a lot of fun and joy at WonderCon. I was with
Yeah.
Trevor Lankevich, Dark Knight Nation, when we were at the Toronto Comic Con. We had a great time a couple weeks ago, a fantastic time, and I hope you have a real good time at WonderCon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited to go. This is going to be the first, bigger convention that I've gone to since the pandemic started. It's still not back to normal. DC's not going to. This is DC's home show. They're not going to be there. No Dark Horse, no IDW. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
companies aren't ready to go back, and the press opportunities have been smaller. I still have a few press rooms to do. In fact, I almost was going to get a chance to interview Cheech and Chong, but it didn't work out. They have an original graphic novel called the History of Weed that's coming out later this year. It's coming out on 4/20 next month. So how appropriate. But anyway, yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing a bunch of people and having some drinks and relaxing. So we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, we want to thank you all for joining us as always. Don't forget, hit me up if you're at WonderCon. Love to see you. And be sure you go and check out our War for Earth 3 Spotlight. If you're wondering, why come you guys didn't talk about War for Earth 3 number 2? It's a separate issue, or separate episode rather, separate spotlight for that. So be sure and check that out. Check out the recent interviews. Be sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe to Rocky's channel. If you're listening to the audio only, just do a search for comic space boom exclamation point on YouTube. Ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Like this video, subscribe. You guys know how to do it. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you joining. We'll talk to you next time.
See you later.